long history linking the Sikhs to Britain. It goes back to the 18th century. That relationship is the subject of a new exhibition funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund. It's called the Sikh Museum Initiative. It'll focus on locating and uncovering relics and artifacts that bind the two communities together. And Gurinder Singh Mann is the director of the initiative, and I'm delighted to say that he joins me in the studio. Gurinder, very good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for dropping in to tell us about this. I'm really excited because this is a really special exhibition.
Yes.
But before we talk about the exhibition, let's just talk about the relationship between the Sikhs and the British. How important was that relationship, historically speaking?
Well, interestingly, the British had actually arrived on the shores of India, as a company, so as the East India Company. So they'd already been actually making inroads all across India, dealing with the Mughal emperors as well, in terms of actually trying to gain territories across the empire, did hold the whole of the territories. But essentially what happens is that the Sikhs and the British don't actually have that many kind of dealings until the late 18th century, around about the 1780s, when you actually see the Sikhs actually enter Delhi and hoist the Sikh flag in that time under the General Baghel Singh. And that is when the British actually start writing in depth about, I think in a future time, we will be actually having some kind of encounter with the British at that particular point.
And over that sort of period of time, what sort of relationship has there been between the British and the Sikhs? Has it, of course, we know in recent times, when I say recent times, I'm talking about the 20th century and onwards, there was a very good relationship because the Sikhs fought for the British in the world wars and stuff. But historically speaking, so going back further, what sort of relation, was it a very strained relationship? Was it a tough one?
Yeah, I think when the British were actually, like I said, making inroads, the Sikhs were actually kind of just having a few skirmishes with the British just before the 1800s. But when Maharaja Ranjit Singh actually comes to power in the Punjab, they actually draw up a treaty. So what they do is they actually recognise each other as sovereign kind of powers and states as well. And at that particular point, it leads to peace really between the Sikhs and the British up until about 1839, where Maharaja Ranjit Singh passes away. And then you do actually have discord in the actual Sikh Empire. So between 1839 and 1845, that is when the British actually start thinking, well, hold on a second, there may be an opportunity to take the Punjab, for instance, but at the same time, the Sikhs are actually thinking, well, why is the British actually starting to bring all this massive soldiers near our territories as well? So, it does have some different plays across
history, yeah. And that brings us nicely to the exhibition. It's called Anglo-Sikh Wars, and presumably will capture, some of the essence of what you talked about. What was the idea behind this exhibition?
Well, essentially, what you touched upon is the fact that, not just the Sikhs, but Hindus and Muslims had actually fought as part of, the war effort in World War I and World War II as well. And interestingly, as people have been celebrating this over the last couple of years in terms of what it means for the Asian population to have been part of the Commonwealth forces, what I actually found and what our team on the Sikh Museum Initiative found was that it doesn't actually explain how, say, for the Sikhs, how we got to actually be as part of this British Indian Army, so to speak. And for the Sikh side, it actually comes down to the Anglo-Sikh Wars, because it was this particular pivotal point in history between 1845 and 1849 is when the actual Sikhs and the British do come together. They collide in terms of like a war of empires, so to speak. And it's then when the British actually see the Sikhs as being this mighty warrior race, so to speak, and then try to cultivate them later on to actually be as part of the British Indian Army as well, so to speak.
And an important thing about exhibitions like this is to inform future generations of our very strong history. Yeah. And so, I'm delighted that you've actually kind of brought this exhibition to life using very modern techniques. Tell us about that, because it's quite exciting.
Well, interestingly, what we've found at the initiative is that we've been trying to actually locate relics and artifacts all across the UK, and we know for a fact that there's many private collectors who hold items as well, but the issue seems to be is actually loaning of items, people sharing information as well. So we've had to adapt the way we actually work in terms of actually how we can remodel things. So what we've done is, as part of this exhibition, we've actually kind of recreated things via 3D modeling. So what that means is we've actually been able to photograph things, recreate it in 3D, so you'll be able to see those kind of items on a 3D tablet, for instance, and then children can now start using that and see objects themselves. So that's the first aspect to it. The second aspect we're using is something called augmented reality, which essentially puts an object virtually in your hand, really, across a screen. So it's this new technologies which will actually try and get the younger audiences involved in actually going to museums. Well, that's our hope anyway.
Absolutely. And you mentioned manuscripts, and there are many still in existence, and you've been able to get one loaned to you from Leicester University, which has a very special significance. Tell us about that.
Well, it was interesting because myself, I'm an actual, a Sikh historian and scholar, and I've worked with manuscripts for many years, and I've been published with Oxford University as well, but with regards to manuscripts. So for me, when I actually discovered it a couple of years ago, it was very interesting, but we needed a project for where this could be actually brought into fruition, so to speak. So I contacted Simon Dixon at the archives there at University of Leicester, and then we developed a relationship over a couple of months, actually bringing this on loan for the actual exhibition. Now, why it's significant is because it was actually picked up on the battlefield on the Battle of Feroz Shah.
Wow.
And it was brought back to Leicester by Harry Peach was the person who actually obtained it, and he was a kind of like a manuscript dealer here in Leicester, and it's been in the archives of Leicester, for many, many years. And it was when I approached the university, they were very, very happy to be on board as part of the Anglo-Sikh Wars project as well.
So this was a manuscript actually found on the battlefield.
Yes.
And the people will be able to see it. They'll be able to get so close to it.
That's correct. And it's like, that's not the only part of the exhibition. There's other things picked up from the battlefield as well, like swords, for instance, to both sides, the British and the Sikh side as well. So it's a very, very interesting exhibition where we're trying to get loan of items from across the UK, actually.
It sounds really exciting. Just tell us where we can be seen and when, please.
Okay, so basically we launched on the 11th of March, which was Saturday, and it will continue to the 4th of June at the Newark Houses Museum, which is opposite De Montfort University. So not Newark Museum, Newark Houses Museum, which is opposite De Montfort University. We're going to have a number of lectures as well, and on top of that, we're going to have arts and crafts activities for children as well to get everyone engaged as best as possible.
And is there a charge, or is it all absolutely
No,
free?
everything in terms of all our activities are free. So we want all the people of Leicester and all the East Midlands and a far field as well to actually come and visit the exhibition and give us their thoughts in terms of what they think about this special
It is very special indeed. Thank you so much for dropping in to tell us about
No
it.
problem.
Can't wait. I'm going to check it out, and I'm sure so will a lot of our listeners. Thank you so much, Gurinder, for joining us on the
Thank you very
program.
much, Kamlesh.
That's Gurinder Singh Mann, director of the Sikh Museum Initiative, joining us on the program about that very exciting Anglo-Sikh Wars exhibition taking place at Newark Houses Museum right here in Leicester.